everyone, welcome to my next video. In my last video you saw that we made these nice hover effects where we have an entire div that when we hover inside it, our icon background changes color, our heading moves down, and our text comes into view all on hover, and we set up 3 of these within a grid. Some people have mentioned that this is not accessible friendly, which is very true. So today we're going to take the next steps to go ahead and make it a little bit more accessible so that we can tab through it using our keyboard and set it up to be a little bit more screen reader friendly as well. So what we're going to do is, and I'll show you exactly what it looks like when it's done here. So you can see I add a little icon in the top giving users an idea that they need to hover to get more information. You can tab through or shift tab to go backwards. You can see if I do even click on it that it stays focused. And then there's a few more other things that we're going to do, but we'll go through those as we do them. So the very first thing we need to do is actually add some code in a code snippet so that we can use font awesome icons. Even though Oxygen has the ability to use icons like we are here that are font awesome icons, we can't use them as just actual font awesome code like you typically would. So let's go ahead and get that added first. So to do that, what we need to do is add in a code snippet. So I'm going to go to my plugins, add new, and if you just search snippet, it should be our first one that shows up here, and go ahead and click install. And once we get that activated, while it does that, I'm going to come over here. Sridhar wrote a tutorial on how to do this, so I'm just following along with this. It still works pretty well. So what I'm going to do is take all this code right here, and I'm going to paste it in over here. So I'm going to come into snippets, add new, and I'm just going to click in the code field here and paste it in. And for our title, I'll call it font awesome, and you can set it to run everywhere. The one thing you will need to change is this link right here. So right now it has a version in there that might not be the latest. So in order to get that, we'll jump back over here, and you can see we just need to replace the current latest version, which can be seen here. So if you click this, it's going to go to font awesome, where it gives you the ability to get a kit code. So you'll have to enter in your email address in order to do that, but it's a very simple process. And once you've done that, you can come either log in or via email, go ahead and get your link. So I already have one that I set up, but I'm not going to show it here. I'll copy and paste that in off screen. The one thing I am going to just say though is if the link you have does have HTTPS in front of it, go ahead and put that in there as well. You just want to make sure that it's inside of these single quotes here, and you can just add in that entire link. And once you do that, just come down and click Save Changes and Activate. Alright, so we got that in there, and you can make sure that it is toggled on, which if you click Saved and Activate, it should be. So now we can go back and jump into our builder, which I have here. I am going to click Save here first and then refresh. And I just wanted to do that to make sure that it's actually pulling in our font awesome data as we go in to do that. All right, so let's go ahead and keep working on this. I'm going to open my structure back up here. And we're going to expand this out. All right, so I'm just going to continue expanding this out till I get to my first div here. I'm going to come up here and make sure that I'm on my class and click on state. We're going to choose before. And in our content here, we're going to do a /, and then we're going to type in F05A, which happens to be the font awesome icon that we need. This is not to be confused with the / because it won't work. You can see that it's not working yet. There's one other thing we need to do to make this work. So what I'm going to do is come over to advanced and come down to custom CSS, and we're just going to add in a font family of font awesome, and do make sure that you have capital F and capital A, all one word, and that's just gonna let it know that we need to use this font family for that. So go ahead and click apply, and we can collapse that, and now you can see that our icons are showing up there. I'm going to click the little back arrow here so we can style this out a little bit. I'm going to go to typography. Let's go ahead and set a font size to, let's do 25. And a color. I'm just going to choose an existing color that I have here. We'll go with this darker blue. And next, I'm going to click my little back button here, and let's go to our layout. And here we're going to take this and go all the way down and click on absolute. And we're going to set our top to 0 and our right to, let's try 5 and see how that looks. That looks pretty good to me. It seems like it's got even spacing all the way around it, on the top and on the right. So we'll go ahead and leave that there, and we're good for the before. So next, I'm just going to click on our state here again and go back to the original, and I'm going to let's go ahead and add in our box shadow now. So I'm going to come down to effects and box shadow, and you can choose an existing color or type something in. I usually just do an RGBA and set it up as black, so it's going to be 3 zeros. And then I do an opacity of like 25%, and that usually ends up looking pretty good. And on this, I'm going to do 1 for my horizontal offset and 1 for my vertical offset, and let's try 4 for our blur and 1 for our spread. And if you're anything like me, I always end up clicking in the top here and setting inset. Just make sure you have that toggled off and it'll show on the outside. So you can see we're getting a nice shadow effect all the way around. You can increase that or decrease it and change your color as you see fit. I'm happy with this. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Showing you how to do it is what I'm trying to do here. So next, let's go ahead and continue to work through this. So one of the next things we did was set it so that we can actually have focus on it. So we're going to do that in the same exact way that we did our hover. The only thing we're going to do different here is we're going to change hover to focus and add 3 items here. Now again, if I stay on my class here, I'm only going to have to go through and add these once. So I'm going to click add state, and we're going to type in focus, and our first one was a div, nth-of-type. Make sure you get everything spelled right here. So you can see a focus div colon nth-of-type 1. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to come over here, and all we needed to do is set our background. And again, we switched to that nice blue, which I believe was our second one here. I'm going to set that. And we need to set our effect of transition, which was 0.25 ease in out. All right, so we got that added there. The next thing I'm going to do is just click my back arrow here a couple of times, and we're going to come up here and add our next one. So click add state again. Again, we're going to type in focus space. In this case is our H3 colon nth of type 1, and go ahead and click OK once you verify that everything's spelled correctly. And on this one, mostly all we're adding is going to be under effects. So let's go ahead and start with opacity. We're going to be changing that to 0. Currently it's at 1, so we want to make that disappear just like we do when we're hovering. We're going to set our transition to 0.5. Again, that'll be ease in out. And we're going to set our CSS properties to opacity and transform. Then I'm going to click my little back arrow here, and we're going to come down to transform and add transform. Change from rotate to translate, and set our translate Y to 100, and change our value from pixels to %. So all we're doing is pushing that 100% down. So we are good to go on that one. So let's jump and do our third one. So go ahead and click add state again. And let's get our last one in here, which is going to be focus space p tag nth of type and 1. Verify that you have everything in there correct, and go ahead and click OK. And you can see that we're still on our transform, so I'll just go ahead and add that in to start right away since we're already here. So again, I'm doing a translate Y, and what we're going to do is set this to 1%. So right now when we're not hovered on it or focused, it's negative 100% currently, so it's up above here. And when we hover or focus, it comes down. So we just want to set that to be 1%. So let's move back and go to our opacity, which is going to be 1. Currently it's set at 0, so when we focus or hover, we want to set that back to 1. And lastly, we're going to put in our transition. Again, we did 0.5, ease in out, and our CSS properties, we're going to do opacity and transform. All right, so we got all of those in there. And now if I go ahead and click on these other divs, we should see that if we're set onto the class here, that it automatically has our state all connected there. So you can see we have our before that we added giving us the icon, and then the 3 focus items that we just added as well, which is perfect. And again, we can verify that on the third one as well. And you can see they're all there. So that makes it very easy using our classes like that. So I'm going to jump back to our first one. And now we're going to start adding in some attributes. So I'm going to come over to advanced and attributes and add attribute. So the very first thing that we want to do is add tab index. And what we're going to do is set our value to 0. Basically that means that it's going to allow us to tab through these items or be keyboard focusable. So I get that added. You can click apply attributes. And I think what we'll do is probably add our other ones here in a moment. I will do one more here, which is going to be our aria label. And that we just set our name to aria label. And our value, I'm going to set it to each of the titles that we have. So in this case, speed for my first one. And we'll do power and then design for the third. There's going to be 2 more that I add, but we're going to come back to those in a little bit here. So I'm going to click apply, jump over to my next one, advanced, attributes, and we're going to set this to tab index. Just got to make sure you get this all spelled right. And again to 0. And we're going to add our next one, which is going to be aria label. And this one we're going to do power and apply. And our third one, we're going to follow that same exact suit. Add attributes, tab index, set to 0. And add our next one. Basically what our aria label is doing is giving our screen reader, showing that this has this label of design. In our case, in this one, again, you can set that to whatever you need that to be. A lot of times we see these show up on buttons and things of that such. There's a lot of articles and stuff out there on aria attributes. So if you want to learn more about that, there's a ton of things out there. I'm not going to link to anything specific here, just because there's so much out there, and I'm by no means an expert on this, and I'm just trying to share what I'm learning as I go with you guys so that I can help make the Oxygen community better, and so that we can all learn and make our websites and web designs more accessible. So we got all those added in here. The next thing we can do is actually expand out each of these items, and I'm going to go to our text as well, and I'm going to add an attribute there and come down to attribute, and you can see I actually have this still in here already. We're just going to add a role in Tooltip. Didn't realize I still had that in here, but regardless, this is what we want in here. So we want to set our role to Tooltip. Basically what that is saying is that it's alerting the screen reader that this is a tooltip, and that by hovering or focusing, you're going to show the tooltip and show what that information is within the tooltip. So once you get that added, click apply, and you can set that to the next 3. Again, mine are already in there, so I'm not going to go through the third one. So the last thing that I do want to do is we're going to add in a code block. So I'm just going to click on my top div here and click add, and I'm going to add a code block, so you can just search. And it doesn't matter if it's at the bottom or at the top, you just want it to be within this section. If you click on the PHP, we can comment this out so that it's not saying hello world. So just highlight everything and just match it just like I have here. And go ahead and click apply, and we'll click back, and that's just so we can get rid of that hello world here. And you can see it's no longer showing, and we're going to come down to our JavaScript. And what I have here is 2 functions that are fairly simple, and I'm going to walk you guys through what those are as we go through them. I'm just going to copy and paste them over and not actually type them out all the way. So what I have here is 2 functions. Our first one is something we're going to be calling on focus, and the second one we're going to be calling on blur, which is the opposite of on focus. So basically what that is doing is anytime that we're no longer focusing on it, we're calling the on blur, which takes it back to what we want it to be. So in our case, we're calling a function which I labeled focusHover. We're passing in an object, and then we're using that object to set the attribute, and we're going to set our attribute of aria-expanded to true. And on the flip side, when we're no longer focused, we're calling our function focusBlur, again passing in an object and using that object to set attribute, and we're going to set our aria-expanded back to false. So what that's doing is basically saying that when a screen reader comes across that, when it's not focused or hovered, it's not expanded. And that's why we're saying it's false. But when it is focused or hovered, it's changing that to true, which is when we're getting our data to show here. So we're just going to do that dynamically. So let's go ahead and add those attributes to each one. So I'm going to go ahead and click apply there. And I'll include this in the description as well, so you guys can just copy and paste it. You don't have to try and read what I have here on my screen. And you can choose what to label your functions as whatever you want them to be. I just did that for the focus of this lesson here because it makes a little sense to me. So I'm going to collapse that, and now I can come back to my divs here. And we're going to go back to our advanced and attributes, and we're going to go ahead and add 2 more in here. So we'll do our first one, which is going to be on focus, is what we're calling there. And then the value is going to be focusHover with a capital H is how I had it there. And then we're going to pass this. So basically what this does is it takes our whatever item we're on. So that's where we're getting the object from, is the object is this. So that's why we're passing this to that. So let's go ahead and add our other one. And here we're going to do on blur. And our value is going to be focusBlur. And again, we're going to pass this into this function. And go ahead and click apply. And we just want to do the same exact thing on our other 2 divs. Let's navigate over there and get those added. So on focus is our first one. And it is important to make sure you spell those correct, because otherwise it's not going to work properly. And we're going to call our function, which was focusHover, and pass in this. All right, and let's add our second one, which is going to be on blur. And we're going to pass in focusBlur. And there we go. I'm going to click apply. And let's do our last one now. You can see this is a little bit repetitive here, but it is very important to make this more accessible. So on focus again, and our value is going to be focusHover. My finger keeps hitting the V instead of the C. And let's get this last one added. All right, so we got all those in there, click apply, and we should be good to go. So now anytime that we hover, you can see everything's still working. And then once we get to the front end here, you'll see that it's going to still be working as we tab through it, and we're going to have all this nice data. I'm going to go ahead and click save, jump to the front end, and I'm going to click refresh. And I'm just going to quickly show you this. So this is, I had the icon, Font Awesome icon showing here before, and this is what it would show up as if we didn't have that code snippet added. You'd see it just doesn't show properly. Even though, as I said, Oxygen lets you use Font Awesome icons within the builder, you can't call it directly by the code unless you add in that code snippet like I showed. So I'm just going to click refresh here, and you can see that's working now. So now, if I tab through, you can see that this is working. And if I tab backwards with Shift Tab, you can see they're all focusing as we'd expect. And if I go ahead and inspect here, I'll scroll up a little bit for you. You can see that when I click on this one here, which is our first one, and if I tab to that, you can see we're getting our expanded equals true. And when I tab to the next one, that turns to false, and the next one turns to true. And when I tab again, that one goes back to false, and our next one goes to true. And then you can see that we have all that other data showing here as well. So that wraps up what we were trying to do here, make these a little bit more accessible by adding an icon so people know that there's more information to be seen here when either they hover, and then making it keyboard accessible via tabs. As you can see, we tab through that, and then also adding the aria data so that screen readers can pick it up a little bit better. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not an expert on accessibility. I'm just trying to share what I learn as I go so that we can continue to build up the Oxygen community and make everyone a little bit better. And if you guys have questions, do leave them down in the comments below or on Facebook. I'm happy to answer them. And if you have suggestions or feedback, if I did something that you think is incorrect, please do let me know. As I said, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just trying to continue to make myself better and share with you guys as I go. So that wraps up this video. I hope to see you guys in my next video, and we will go from there. Thanks. Have a great day.